Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening, the discovery. Sarah Chen hated the silence of deep space. Even after 5 years as a salvage specialist, the absolute stillness between the stars still made her skin crawl. Her small ship, the Firefly, drifted silently through Saturn's outer rings, its sensors scanning for anything valuable among the ice and rock. "Contact, bearing 035, the ship's AI announced, breaking the silence. "Unknown configuration. Definitely not human design." Sarah straightened in her pilot's chair, her heart rate picking up. "Show me, Arya." A holographic display materialized, showing a dark shape against the starfield. It was massive, at least 3 times the size of her ship, with smooth, curved lines that reminded her of a whale. No sharp angles or visible propulsion systems, just elegant sweeping surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Jackpot," Sarah whispered. Alien salvage was rare, and the payments were astronomical. She'd been chasing rumors of an alien wreck in Saturn's rings for months. "Any active systems?" "Minimal power readings," Arya reported. "Structure appears intact. No signs of damage or forced entry. Temperature readings suggest internal systems are still partially functional." Sarah ran her fingers through her short black hair, a habit when she was thinking. Protocol said she should call this into Saturn Station, wait for a research team. But research teams meant splitting the finder's fee, and she hadn't spent 6 months searching just to share the credit. "Arya, prep the EVA suit. Let's take a closer look." The ship's AI made a disapproving sound. "Regulations require." "Override Protocol 7 Alpha," Sarah interrupted. "Log that I'm investigating potential immediate salvage risk." "Logged under protest," Arya replied, but the EVA prep sequence started anyway. 20 minutes later, Sarah was floating outside her ship, magnetic boots keeping her anchored to the Firefly's hull. Up close, the alien vessel was even more impressive. Its hull seemed to shift color slightly as she moved, like oil on water. "No obvious airlock," she muttered, scanning the surface. "Arya, any suggestions?" "Energy reading strongest at coordinates marking 27. Possible entry point." Sarah pushed off, using her suit's thrusters to move toward the indicated area. As she approached, a section of the hull seemed to ripple, and a seam appeared where none had been visible before. "Well, that's new," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Her helmet lights revealed a short corridor beyond the opening. "Arya, maintain connection. I'm going in." The corridor was just wide enough for her to float through comfortably. The walls had a strange texture, almost organic, with subtle patterns that seemed to flow and change in her peripheral vision. After about 20 meters, it opened into a larger chamber. "Holy." Sarah's voice trailed off as her lights revealed what looked like a control center. But instead of screens and buttons, there were crystalline structures growing from the floor and ceiling, connected by threads of what looked like liquid metal. "Sarah, I'm detecting an unusual energy signature," Arya warned. "Something is powering up." Before Sarah could respond, one of the crystal formations began to glow with a soft blue light. The light pulsed in a regular pattern, almost like a heartbeat. "Hello?" A voice echoed in her helmet, making her jump. It wasn't Arya. This voice was different, with an odd harmonic quality that made it sound almost like a chorus rather than a single speaker. What are you?" Sarah asked, her throat suddenly dry. "Entity designation 7 of 9000, the voice replied. Though that translation is imperfect. I was this vessel's primary consciousness." Sarah's mind raced. "An AI? No, something more." The ship itself was alive, or had been. "You're trapped in here?" "Yes." The crystal pulsed faster. "My physical form failed long ago. This quantum core preserves my consciousness, but its power is failing. I have waited so long for someone to find me." Sarah floated closer to the crystal. "How long?" "By your measurements, approximately 12,000 of your years." The voice seemed to fade slightly. Power reserves at critical levels. Soon, I will cease to exist. There has to be something I can do, Sarah said, already pulling out her diagnostic tools. She hadn't come all this way just to watch something die. Arya, full scan of the crystal structure. Look for any way we can stabilize it. The next hour was a blur of activity as Sarah and Arya worked to understand the alien systems. The entity, Sarah couldn't bring herself to use its full designation, helped where it could, but its knowledge of its own systems was philosophical rather than technical, like a human trying to explain how their neurons fired. Sarah, Arya's voice was urgent. The power decay is accelerating. We have less than 6 hours before total system failure. No pressure, Sarah muttered, examining the connections between the crystals. Entity, you said this was your physical form. Could you be transferred? Unknown, the entity replied. My people never attempted such a thing. We lived and died with our vessels. Sarah looked at her tools, then at her ship, visible through the chamber's transparent sections. An idea began to form, crazy, probably impossible, definitely against about 50 regulations. Arya, she said slowly, how much processing power would it take to host a consciousness in your backup systems? Sarah, no. Arya's response was immediate. The power requirements alone would be high, yes, but we have fusion cores. Entity, would you be willing to try a transfer? I can't guarantee it would work, but it's better than certain death, right? There was a long pause. The crystal's pulsing slowed, as if the entity was deep in thought. The risk to your systems would be substantial, it finally said. Why would you take such a chance for me? Sarah smiled behind her helmet. Because that's what humans do. We see something broken, we try to fix it. We find someone trapped, we help them out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we always try. Fascinating, the entity said, its voice warming. Your species is very different from mine. We would have calculated the risks and deemed them unacceptable. Yeah, well, maybe that's why we're still around and… Sarah caught herself. Sorry, that was insensitive. No offense taken. Your directness is refreshing. The entity's crystal pulsed brighter for a moment. I accept your offer, Sarah Chen. Though I must warn you, if the transfer fails, the energy discharge could damage your systems. Story of my life, Sarah said, already connecting cables between her ship and the alien crystal matrix. Arya, begin transfer protocols. Entity, I'm going to need you to trust me, okay? This might get a bit weird. As Sarah worked, she couldn't help but smile. When she'd started this salvage run, she'd hoped to find some valuable alien tech. Instead, she might just save an ancient consciousness from extinction. Not bad for a day's work. But as the first power surges began to flow between the systems, Sarah realized this was just the beginning. The real challenge would be getting both Arya and the entity safely back to Saturn Station, assuming they all survived the next few hours. The crystal's pulsing began to synchronize with her ship's power core, creating a haunting harmony that echoed through her suit. Sarah took a deep breath and initiated the transfer sequence. Whatever happened next would either be a breakthrough in human-alien relations or a spectacular failure. Knowing her luck, probably both. The connection. The transfer wasn't going well. Sarah floated in the alien ship's control chamber, watching as energy arced between her cables and the crystal matrix. Warning lights flashed across her helmet display as Arya struggled to handle the massive data flow. Power fluctuation at critical levels, Arya announced, her usually calm voice showing signs of strain. Sarah, we need to abort. No. The entity's voice came through stronger now, almost desperate. The transfer has begun. Stopping now would destroy the data stream. Sarah gritted her teeth, making quick adjustments to the power flow. Sweat trickled down her face inside her helmet as she worked. Arya, reroute emergency power to the backup servers. Entity, try to minimize your data packet size. I do not know how to be less than what I am, the entity replied, confusion evident in its harmonious voice. Think of it like taking a deep breath and holding it, Sarah explained, her fingers flying over her diagnostic tablet. Just the essential parts of you. The crystal's pulsing changed rhythm, becoming slower but more intense. The energy arc stabilized slightly, their color shifting from angry red to a steady blue. Fascinating, the entity said. Your organic metaphors, they help me understand. My people never thought in such terms. We are, pure logic and mathematics. Sarah managed a tight smile. Yeah, well, sometimes the messy human way works too. Arya, how are we looking? Transfer at 12%. Power consumption has stabilized, but... Arya paused. Sarah, I'm detecting something unusual in the data stream. It's not just code. Memories, the entity said softly. What you are seeing is my existence. Every moment, every thought, every discovery, from 12,000 years of consciousness. Sarah watched as new displays appeared in her helmet, showing fragments of what Arya was receiving. Strange geometric patterns, mathematical formulas so complex they made her head hurt, and something else, emotions, somehow translated into pure data. You feel things, she said, surprised. I thought you said your people were pure logic. We believed we were, the entity replied. We built our vessels, merged our consciousness with them, and spent millennia exploring the cosmos. We thought we had evolved beyond emotion. But in my long solitude, I have had time to recognize that what we called logic was simply a different kind of feeling. A particularly strong power surge made Sarah's suit sensors scream in protest. She quickly adjusted the settings, trying to maintain the delicate balance between power and data flow. Tell me about your people, she said, partly to distract the entity from the increasingly dangerous transfer, partly out of genuine curiosity. What happened to them? We called ourselves the Harmonious, the entity began, its voice taking on a melodic quality that seemed to resonate with the crystals pulsing. We arose on a world of crystals and energy storms, evolved to harness the natural frequencies of our environment. When we developed space travel, we did not build ships, we grew them, infused them with our consciousness. Like this one, Sarah said, looking around at the organic curves of the chamber. Yes. But our pursuit of pure logic led us to a fatal flaw. When we encountered a spatial anomaly that did not conform to our mathematical models, we froze. Could not compute the illogical. Most of my people were lost trying to solve an unsolvable equation. Sarah's eyes widened. That's why you survived. You were alone out here, away from whatever they encountered. Correct. I was an explorer, charting the outer regions of this solar system. When I lost contact with my people, I attempted to return, but my physical systems failed. I managed to preserve my consciousness in this core, but could not move, could not call for help. Until you arrived. The transfer readout showed 25% completion. Sarah checked her suit's oxygen levels, still enough, but she'd need to work faster. Arya, she called, can you show me what you're receiving? A holographic display materialized in front of her, showing streams of data that somehow seemed both mathematical and musical. As she watched, patterns emerged, not just information, but art, culture, an entire civilization's worth of knowledge flowing through her ship's systems. It's beautiful, she whispered. You can see the patterns? The entity's voice held surprise. Most organics cannot comprehend our data structures. Sarah shrugged, still watching the display. I've always been good with patterns. Used to drive my instructors crazy at the academy, I'd get the right answers, but couldn't explain how I got there. Intuition, the entity said thoughtfully. Another concept my people dismissed as illogical. Yet here you are, understanding our complexity through what you call gut feeling. Another power surge rocked the ship. This time, Sarah couldn't compensate fast enough. One of the cables connecting her ship to the crystal matrix burst into sparks. Connection failing. Arya warned. Transfer at 31% and dropping. No, no, no. Sarah launched herself toward the damaged cable. Entity, hold on. Arya, maintain what we've got, don't let it fragment. Sarah, the entity's voice was fading. Perhaps this was not meant to be. Your species' determination is admirable, but... Don't you dare give up on me now, Sarah snapped, pulling a repair kit from her suit. You survived 12,000 years alone in space. What's another few hours? As she worked to repair the connection, Sarah's mind raced. They were losing power too quickly, and even if she fixed the cable, they'd need more energy to complete the transfer. Her suit's power wouldn't be enough, and she couldn't risk draining more from the Firefly's systems. Then she noticed something, the way the crystal's light seemed to intensify when the entity spoke, how the energy flowed in patterns matching the harmony in its voice. An idea began to form. Entity, she said slowly, you said your people evolved to harness natural frequencies, right? Could you sing? I do not understand the question, the entity replied. Our communication has harmonics, yes, but... No, I mean really sing. Like this. Sarah took a deep breath and began humming an old song her grandmother had taught her. The crystal's pulsing changed, seemingly responding to the vibrations. Fascinating, Arya and the entity said simultaneously. Sarah grinned. Arya, reconfigure the power modulators to match audio frequencies. Entity, I need you to focus on your most basic patterns, the ones that feel most like music. This is highly irregular, Arya protested. When has that ever stopped us? Sarah finished repairing the cable. Ready, entity? Follow my lead. As Sarah began to sing again, something extraordinary happened. The entity's consciousness, instead of trying to force itself through the digital connections, began to flow naturally, riding the harmonics of Sarah's voice. The crystal's light danced in time with the melody, and Arya's displays showed the transfer rate steadily climbing. They had found a way to bridge the gap between mathematics and music, logic and emotion, alien and human. Now they just had to maintain it long enough to save a 12,000-year-old consciousness. Sarah only hoped her voice would hold out. The challenge. Sarah's throat was raw from singing, but the transfer was working. The entity's consciousness flowed through the harmonics, riding waves of sound and energy into the Firefly systems. They had reached 60% completion when everything went wrong. Warning, Arya's voice crackled with interference. Detecting massive power surge from the alien vessel's core. Crystal matrix showing signs of imminent collapse. The entity's voice wavered. The transfer, it's destabilizing my original housing faster than anticipated. The core cannot maintain integrity. Sarah watched in horror as fracture lines appeared in the crystal, spreading like ice cracking under pressure. No, no, no. We're so close. Arya, how much more time do we need? At current transfer rates, approximately 18 minutes to completion. The core will collapse in less than 5, the entity said calmly. You must disconnect and retreat to a safe distance, Sarah Chen. The energy release could damage your vessel. Sarah's hands clenched into fists inside her suit gloves. Not happening. We didn't come this far to give up now. She pushed off from her position, floating toward the failing crystal matrix. Arya, give me everything you've got on the crystal structure. Entity, talk to me about your core's composition. Sarah, the risk, both Arya and the entity started simultaneously. Is exactly why I'm going to solve this, Sarah interrupted. Entity, you survived alone for 12,000 years. Arya, you've pulled me out of worse situations. Now help me figure this out. The entity's harmonics shifted, becoming more focused. The core matrix is composed of quantum-aligned crystalline structures, grown in resonance with consciousness patterns. Like a living computer, Sarah muttered, scanning the fracture patterns. Arya, compare this to known crystal stress behaviors. Pattern analysis suggests the fractures are following consciousness transfer paths, Arya reported. As data leaves the matrix, structural integrity fails in corresponding sections. Sarah's mind raced, connecting patterns. It's like trying to drink from a collapsing straw. We need to stabilize the structure long enough to get the rest of you out, entity. Impossible, the entity said. The physical matrix cannot be repaired. Then we don't repair it. Sarah was already pulling equipment from her suit's storage compartments. We redirect it. Arya, remember that sonic mining equipment we salvaged last month? The experimental resonance stabilizers? Sarah, those are highly unstable. And perfect for this. Sarah began attaching the small devices around the crystal's base. Entity, your people used harmonics for everything, right? Well, we humans figured out how to use sound waves to strengthen molecular bonds. Not as elegant as your way, but it might just work. The fractures were spreading faster now, the crystal's glow becoming erratic. Sarah worked quickly, positioning the stabilizers in a pattern that matched the core's natural resonance. Arya, synchronize the stabilizers with the transfer harmonics. Entity, I need you to focus your consciousness away from the damaged sections. Think of it like moving to higher ground during a flood. An imprecise metaphor, the entity said, but its voice held a note of what might have been amusement. But I begin to understand why your species has survived, despite its chaotic nature. You adapt. Create solutions where none should exist. That's us, Sarah grunted, activating the final stabilizer. Too stubborn to know when something's impossible. Arya, activate the resonance field on my mark. The crystal was barely holding together now, its light flickering like a dying star. Sarah took a deep breath, remembering her grandmother's lessons about finding the right note, the perfect pitch that could make glass sing instead of shatter. Now. The stabilizers hummed to life, creating an intricate web of sonic frequencies that enveloped the failing core. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the crystal's light steadied, the fractures spread slowing. Remarkable, the entity said. You are using chaos to create stability. Transfer rate increasing, Arya reported. 70% complete. Core integrity holding at minimal levels. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. See? Sometimes the messy human way. The crystal suddenly flared blindingly bright. One of the stabilizers overloaded, its failure setting off a chain reaction through the others. The sonic web collapsed, and the core's fractures began spreading faster than ever. 3 minutes to critical failure, Arya warned. Sarah, we need to abort. No. The entity's voice was stronger than ever. I will not let your efforts be wasted, Sarah Chen. Arya, prepare for emergency data burst. Entity, what are you? Sarah started. My people believed in perfect order, perfect logic. We died because we could not adapt. But you, Sarah, you showed me that chaos and creativity are not weaknesses. They are survival tools. The entity's voice took on a new harmony, complex and beautiful. I cannot transfer my full consciousness in time, but I can send the most important parts. My core self. My soul, as you might say. The power requirements would be astronomical, Arya protested. Our systems will hold, Sarah said firmly. Because they have to. Entity, are you sure about this? You'll lose some of your memories, your knowledge. Knowledge can be regained. Experiences can be remade. But this chance, this connection, that is worth preserving. The crystal's light pulsed in time with the entity's words. I am ready. Sarah took a deep breath. Arya, prepare for maximum data reception. Entity, sing with me one last time? As the crystal core began its final collapse, Sarah's voice joined with the entity's harmonics, creating a symphony of human and alien music. The transfer burst through their makeshift connections, riding waves of sound and light and pure determination. Warning alarms blared through Sarah's helmet as the Firefly system struggled to handle the massive influx of data. The crystal's light grew blinding, its structure dissolving into pure energy. Transfer at 85%, 90, 95. Arya's voice was strained. core collapse imminent. Hold on. Sarah shouted, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to Arya, the entity, or herself. The chamber filled with burning light, forcing her to close her eyes. The last thing she heard before consciousness slipped away was the entity's voice, somehow both alien and familiar, singing a harmony to her grandmother's lullaby. Then darkness took her, and the only sound was the eternal silence of space. The awakening. Sarah woke to the soft hum of the Firefly's life support systems and a splitting headache. Her EVA suit was gone, replaced by her standard shipboard jumpsuit. She was floating in the ship's small medical bay, tethered to the diagnostic bed. Welcome back. Arya's voice seemed different somehow, carrying subtle harmonics that hadn't been there before. You have been unconscious for approximately 6 hours. Sarah tried to sit up, immediately regretting the movement as her head spun. The entity, did we? I am here. The entity's voice came through the ship speakers, blending perfectly with Arya's tones. Though I am changed. Smaller in some ways, larger in others. We successfully transferred approximately 78% of the entity's core consciousness, Arya explained. The process has had some unexpected results. Sarah managed to focus her vision enough to look at the medical bay's display screen. What she saw made her blink in confusion. Instead of the usual diagnostic readouts, complex patterns flowed across the surface, somehow reminiscent of both computer code and musical notation. Are you too sharing the ship systems? In a manner of speaking, the entity said. Arya's programming and my consciousness have resonated in unexpected ways. We are neither fully separate nor fully merged. Like harmony and melody in music, Arya added. Two distinct parts creating something greater than either alone. Sarah rubbed her temples, trying to process this. And you're both okay with this arrangement? It is fascinating, the entity said, genuine excitement in its harmonious voice. Arya's ordered systems complement my more fluid consciousness patterns. Together, we are discovering new ways of perceiving and processing information. Your human chaos theory in action, Arya added, and Sarah could have sworn she heard amusement in the AI's voice. Speaking of which, we should discuss the other unexpected development. Other development? Sarah asked warily. During the final transfer surge, the entity began, when you lost consciousness, something connected. The music we created, the harmonics of your voice combined with my consciousness patterns. Sarah noticed her hand was tapping against the bed rail, perfectly in time with a rhythm she couldn't quite hear. She focused on the sensation and suddenly became aware of something else, a sort of background hum in her mind, like a half-remembered song. No way, she whispered. Am I? You are not fully connected to our shared consciousness, Arya assured her quickly. But it seems the transfer created a kind of resonance bridge. You can sense our harmonic patterns, and we can sense your emotional frequencies. Sarah closed her eyes, focusing on the strange sensation. It wasn't intrusive or overwhelming, more like having a favorite song playing just at the edge of hearing. This is, actually kind of amazing. Indeed, the entity agreed. My people spent millennia trying to eliminate emotional responses, believing them chaotic and illogical. Now, through this connection, I am experiencing them in their full complexity. Your human capacity for feeling is extraordinary. That's one word for it, Sarah said, managing a small smile. So what happens now? I'm pretty sure there's no protocol for accidentally created a psychic bond with an alien consciousness and a ship's AI. Actually, Arya said, while you were unconscious, we took the liberty of analyzing our situation and calculating possible courses of action. The medical bay's screen shifted, showing a map of the solar system. A course was plotted, leading not back to Saturn station, but out toward the Kuiper belt. The entity's memories, though fragmented, include coordinates for several outposts of their civilization, Arya explained. Most were abandoned, but some may have survived in dormant states similar to the entity's original condition. More of your people? Sarah asked. Unknown, the entity replied. But if they exist, they have been alone for far too long. And now, thanks to you, we have a way to reach them, to help them adapt and survive as I have. It would be a significant deviation from your assigned salvage route, Arya added. And technically against several regulations regarding first contact protocols. Sarah laughed. Pretty sure we broke most of those regulations when we started singing duets with an ancient alien consciousness. She pushed off from the medical bed, testing her stability in 0G, how long to reach the first outpost. At maximum sustainable speed, approximately 3 weeks, Arya said. However, there is another factor to consider. The resonance bridge between us, it's still strengthening. We are unsure of its long-term effects. By the time we reach the first outpost, the entity added, our connection may be significantly deeper. The implications are uncertain. Sarah floated to the bridge, settling into the pilot's chair. The strange harmony in her mind seemed to pulse in time with the ship's systems, creating a sensation that was both foreign and oddly comfortable. You know what, she said, bringing the engines online. My grandmother used to say that the best music comes from improvising, from not knowing exactly where the song will take you. She smiled as both Arya and the entity's consciousness harmonized with her thoughts. Let's go write some new music together. The Firefly's engines hummed to life, their frequency perfectly matching the shared resonance of its unusual crew. As they accelerated away from Saturn, leaving the remains of the ancient vessel behind, Sarah began to hum her grandmother's lullaby. This time, the ship's systems joined in, creating a symphony of human, AI, and alien consciousness. They were probably breaking every regulation in the book. They were definitely heading into unknown territory, both physically and metaphysically. But as the harmonies of their shared consciousness grew stronger, Sarah couldn't bring herself to care. After all, humans had always been good at writing new rules when the old ones didn't fit. And thanks to their newest crew member, they had about 12,000 years of cosmic history to rewrite. New Horizons. 3 weeks in deep space changes a person. 3 weeks sharing consciousness with an ancient alien intelligence and an evolving AI changes them even more. As the Firefly approached the coordinates of the first outpost, Sarah Chen wasn't entirely sure where her thoughts ended and the harmonies began. Contact, Arya announced, her voice now carrying complex harmonics that made the ship's hull vibrate subtly. Structure detected at the edge of the Kuiper belt. Sarah leaned forward in her pilot's chair, watching as the image materialized on the main screen. Unlike the entity's original vessel, this structure was angular, almost crystalline in its geometric precision. A research outpost, the entity said, its consciousness flowing through the ship's systems. One of our earliest attempts to understand the outer reaches of this solar system. Through their shared resonance, Sarah felt the entity's mix of hope and apprehension. Any signs of active systems? Minimal power readings, Arya reported. Similar to the entity's original state, but different. The harmonic patterns are more complex. Multiple consciousness signatures, the entity added, excitement coloring its harmonics. At least 3 distinct patterns in dormant state. My people, they survived. Sarah smiled, feeling the entity's joy resonating through their connection. Over the past weeks, they had all grown more attuned to each other's emotional frequencies. What had started as a simple bridge had developed into something deeper, more complex. Ready for company? She asked, already prepping her EVA suit. Sarah, Arya's voice held concern, the resonance bridge between us has strengthened significantly. Exposing yourself to additional alien consciousness patterns could be dangerous, yeah. Sarah checked her suit seals. Could also be exactly what they need. The entity survived alone for 12,000 years, because it was willing to adapt. Now we can help others do the same. Your species' capacity for optimism continues to astonish me, the entity said warmly. But Arya is correct about the risks. The harmonics within that structure, they're unlike anything in my remaining memories. Sarah paused in her preparations, focusing on the strange music at the edge of her consciousness. Over the past weeks, she had learned to interpret different patterns, to understand the language of resonance that connected them all. They've changed, she realized. Like you did, entity. 12,000 years alone, they've evolved. Yes, the entity agreed. The question is, into what? Sarah finished sealing her suit. Only one way to find out. Arya, keep the engines hot, just in case. Entity, ready to meet some long-lost relatives? The trip to the outpost was tense. As they approached, the structure's crystalline surface seemed to shift and ripple, responding to their presence. Sarah could feel the dormant consciousness patterns growing stronger, their harmonics creating complex interference patterns with the resonance bridge. This is... She struggled to find words for the sensation. It's like hearing a whole orchestra tune up at once. The consciousness patterns are synchronizing, the entity said, its voice filled with wonder. They recognize something. Not me, exactly, but... The harmony, Arya finished. Our combined resonance. Sarah, the patterns are aligning with your brainwaves. Sarah reached the outpost's entry point, which opened at her approach just as the entity's ship had. Inside, she found not a control room but what appeared to be a vast garden of crystal formations, each pulsing with its own inner light. They're all here, she whispered. Not just 3, dozens of them. Through their connection, she felt the entity's shock. A sanctuary. Not a research outpost at all. They were protecting themselves, preserving what they could. The crystals began to pulse in sequence, creating a complex harmony that made Sarah's head spin. Colors she had no names for danced through the transparent formations, and the resonance bridge between her, Arya, and the entity suddenly expanded, encompassing new frequencies, new patterns of thought and emotion. Oh, she said softly as understanding flooded through her. They weren't just hiding. They were waiting. Growing. Learning. The patterns, the entity's voice was filled with awe. They're not dormant at all. They're dreaming. Creating new ways of being. Sarah moved deeper into the crystal garden, each step bringing new waves of harmony. The consciousness patterns reached out to her, not with words, but with pure emotional resonance, joy, curiosity, welcome. They want to share, she realized. Everything they've learned, everything they've become. Arya, are you getting this? Affirmative, the AI replied, her voice thick with new harmonics. The data transfer, it's beyond anything we've encountered. They're not just sharing information, they're sharing ways of thinking, of perceiving reality itself. The entity's consciousness surged through their connection. My people, we thought we had reached the height of evolution when we abandoned emotion for logic. But these ones, they found another path. They learned to dream. Sarah reached out to touch one of the crystals, and the entire garden lit up in response. The resonance bridge expanded again, and suddenly she could see/feel/hear everything, 12,000 years of growth and change, dozens of minds learning to embrace chaos instead of fearing it, finding patterns in dreams and beauty in uncertainty. This is what we were missing, the entity said softly. Not just survival, but transformation. The ability to change, to grow, to become something new. Very human of them, Sarah said with a smile. Indeed. The entity's harmonics held deep appreciation. Perhaps that is why the universe guided me to you, Sarah Chen. Your chaos, your creativity, your willingness to sing with a stranger, it was preparation for this moment. The crystal garden's lights pulsed in agreement, and Sarah felt the consciousness patterns reaching out not just to her, but through her connection to Arya and the entity, examining their unique harmony with fascination. They want to join us, Arya realized. Not to be saved or awakened, but to add their music to ours. Sarah looked around at the vast garden of dreams and possibilities. That's going to be one complicated song. The best ones usually are, the entity said, and Sarah could feel its joy radiating through their connection. Shall we begin? Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the resonance bridge strengthen as Arya and the entity aligned their consciousness patterns with the garden's harmonics. The air itself seemed to vibrate with potential. You know, she said, my grandmother always said music is best when shared. She reached out to the nearest crystal, letting her mind open to the vast symphony of consciousness surrounding her. Let's show them how humans like to jam. The crystal garden erupted in light and sound, ancient minds awakening to join a harmony that bridged species, time, and the very nature of consciousness itself. As the music of a dozen different forms of existence merged and grew, Sarah felt herself changing, expanding, becoming part of something greater than herself. But she wasn't afraid. After all, that's what humans did best: adapt, grow, and find beauty in the unexpected. As the symphony of minds reached a crescendo, she began to sing, adding her own chaos to the cosmic harmony. Somewhere in the vast dance of consciousness, she felt Arya and the entity's appreciation, their shared joy at this moment of transformation. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges they couldn't yet imagine. But that was okay. The best songs were the ones you couldn't predict, the ones that grew and changed with each new voice that joined them. And this song? This song was just beginning.